Gatton, which is about 2 hours away from where we started, and we've covered about 100 kilometres. So we're only average 50 kilometres an hour for the last 2 hours, but that was of course to really get out of the burbs and towns and stuff like that. So we're now on the Warrego Highway, and we're about an hour and a half away from Dalby, and depending on the time we might stop at Dalby overnight. I had planned on going on to Miles, but it just really depends on what time of day it is. I don't want to turn up there in the dark. We just stopped to take a couple of photographs. The sky is amazingly grey out here. Let's push on. We won't push on to Miles, but about 20 k's out of...
On State Route 49 for 18 kilometres.
18 kilometres, about 18 kilometres out of Dalby is a place called Wilga Bush Camp. Now, I've stayed there before on more than one occasion when I was travelling in the caravan, and I think we might see if we can set up there. Now, while there's a couple of things about it, while it's just like a bush camp in the middle of the bush, there is a second camp which I think is in fact more like a caravan park, not far from there, but which is a paid one, whereas the Wilga Bush Camp is, well, it used to be free. I noticed on Wikicamps that it says that there's a fee, but I don't know how the hell you'd pay the fee because there's nowhere to really pay it. You know, you just drive right in, park in the bush. Maybe someone comes around and collects something, in which case I'll give them a $5. But the thing about it is, though, is because it's free, it's possibly going to be overrun with homeless people, simply because they've got nowhere else to go, and so they tend to set up residences in free camps. So it'll be interesting to see whether it is. And when I last stayed there, there was somebody who had made a bit more of a permanent, not structure, but residence, you know, in that they had a couple of tents and a couple of cars parked there, and a few drums and stuff like that, you know, for cooking in / or on. And so in the last few years, as you know, because I actually did a story on homelessness, a lot of people have moved into what used to be empty free camps. So I'm wondering if in fact that's the case, in which case it might not be the most comfortable place to stay. But also equally is that when I did last stay there, it was really infested with flies and sandflies, so it's not necessarily the most pleasant place to stay, but let's go and check it out anyway, even if we just camp overnight and get going early in the morning. there's no one here. I actually thought there might be a bunch of homeless people living here, but there's no one here at all. Have a look around. Completely empty. Anyway, I think what we'll quickly do is maybe make ourselves a cuppa or something like that, and see about maybe settling in for the night, an early night. Well, it's 5 o'clock, so that would be an early night. When you arrive late to a camp, and it is now 5:30, which means it'll be getting dark soon, the last thing you actually want to do is start preparing a meal. So how about a cold can of Heinz big and chunky beef and veggies, because that's what it's going to be, and water. Cheers. It's not bad actually, even cold. I suppose the idea of a shakedown trip is to, well, I use the term, but I don't know that it actually is the correct term, but in my mind it means to, you know, take a trip or perform some kind of undertaking to see if you can spot the flaws in the plan. And in this case, I can see a couple already. You know, one is that don't arrive late, because if you do, you just don't feel like setting up the stove and cooking something. And the other thing is that you really do need to have, in a vehicle like this, some kind of fit out, because it's very crowded in here, as you can probably tell. I'm squeezed in the middle of all of these boxes and crates and things. And I knew I was going to be, but you know, ultimately that's not ideal. So the idea would be to have a dedicated bed platform, and then stash stuff underneath the bed, because then you're not duplicating the footprint of you and all of your stuff. But one thing that is working very well is that Sirocco fan, so let me show it to you. So it's doing incredibly well. It's pointing right at me, so if I just relax here, I'm going to do some Sudoku. I've got a lantern illuminating the interior, and then I'll nod off. Ah, boy. It's what's the time? It is 10 to 7. Which is Saturday morning, and I had a fairly broken sleep. As you can imagine, obviously, you know, an unfamiliar bed for a start, but also in an unfamiliar vehicle. But there was also a few people came and went, as well as came too, so there were kind of lights and things happening. There's a couple of vehicles camped just over here, and I think at some stage maybe some of the local youth came in, because they were parked down there at the entrance with lights on and talking to each other, but they weren't rowdy, just talking. So I suppose the sort of stuff that you do when you're 18 years old and you've got a car, I suppose. Anyway, I haven't yet boiled the billy, but I got myself some water. Next job is to fire up the gas cooker, I think. Let's do that. got some waterboarding. And there's a few things you discover, you know, when you do these shakedown trips, and one, of course, is access to water. So in order for me to be able to get water, you recall how I packed those in crates. It meant that I then had to get them back out of the crates, which, of course, is not the easiest thing to do, given that they weigh, I don't know, 10 kilograms each or something, you know. And, of course, you've got to then try and lift it out of the crate. So in the other Troopy, as you recall, I fitted a tank and water pump, and I think that obviously is one of the things that we'd consider is a tank and water pump, because access to water is critical. And then, as I said last night, was really a tight squeeze, you know, given that the bed is sort of crammed in between all of those things. So if you have the bed platform raised and then cram everything else underneath, it still doesn't leave a lot of room on the other side. So the idea then might be to make the bed platform foldable. And you've probably seen those, I certainly have. So in other words, either the base pulls out or the back comes off and sits alongside the base, you know, and then you put your mattress on that, and the mattress just serves as a backrest during the day. Alternatively, don't use one single piece mattress like this, but two pieces, and then it folds. And you can't have a gap in the middle though, so you'd have to work out some way of, oh, I should fall through it. Anyway, let's go and get a coffee happening, hey? Cheers. We're going to get an early start. I'm not hungry, so we had ourselves a coffee and we made ourselves a roadie, so let's just hit the road. I don't have any signal, or didn't have any signal there either for the phone, so I couldn't calculate where next. But if we get back out to the main road, we should be right. We're on the road again. We're heading back into Dalby because where we stopped overnight, which was that Wilga bush camp, is actually not on the road. This is the Mooney Highway we're on, and we need to get back on the road to head towards Roma. So we're only a few kilometres out, 4 or 5 kilometres out, so we'll head back into Dalby and reorient, well, 3 kilometres, I see a sign, and reorient ourselves. This is just beautiful country to drive through. I mean, I think this is still on the Darling Downs, and it's just flat, and some might say featureless, but being flat is a feature. Now the paddocks we can see alongside look as if they probably had cotton. I'm not certain. Maybe not. I can see some grain silos there, so grain, I'm not sure what it is that they're growing here, but at the moment they seem to be fallow, so I suppose following the harvest they may come through and plough, I'm not sure. There's a lot of uncertainty in life, isn't there? bloody train thing. Certainly not a passenger train. Take a look at this amazing church. This is a place called Jackson. There's a song about that, isn't there? I'm going to Jackson. God, it's all I got. Something. Anyway, take a look at this. I'm going to get the camera and get a couple of photos, I reckon. So we just passed through Miles, and so we've covered about 400 or so kilometres since we left home, but we'll probably look for somewhere now to have a rest, make some breakfast, maybe have a bit of a lie down and catch 40 winks before carrying on. This is called Judd's Lagoon. It's in a little place near, or called Uliba or something like that. Ulba. Anyway, it's a free camp, and we're just going to stop here for a little while, have a bit of a rest, maybe make a bite to eat, and then carry on. But what a gorgeous spot. Now there are a few other campers here, but there's plenty of space, so we're well spaced out. This is the camping spot that I'm in, and there must be a certain amount of camping etiquette, because somebody did pull up alongside, but they didn't pull up right alongside, which is a good thing. I would have been quite cross. What can you do? You know, I mean, it's a free camp. But at the same time too, though, you don't necessarily want to share it, if you know what I mean. And it's not a case of being, you know, mean or territorial, but it's just that you kind of do what it is that I'm doing to get yourself away from things, you know, to get some privacy and serenity. So you don't really want to be crowded by people. Take a look around though. So they're up the back there. look at this camp. It doesn't get much better, does it? We ended up having a snooze for a couple of hours, which is bizarre given that I probably slept for 12 hours overnight. But it was pretty broken sleep, as I think I may have mentioned this morning, you know, with people coming and going or just simply coming, you know. That couple of people there, I didn't even hear them setting up, so maybe maybe a lot more happened that I just didn't see. Anyway, I haven't had breakfast, so this is going to be breakfast. I got myself a nice can of sardines, some crackers, and I'm just brewing the billy for having a cup of tea. So let's nourish ourselves, and then we'll decide whether it's worthwhile moving on or just kind of set up camp here for tonight. It's getting slightly more bearable in the cabin as I work a few things out, so these shakedown trips are certainly beneficial. Let me just check that water and see if it's boiled. So things are certainly not as convenient as being at home, though I suppose you don't need me to tell you that. But part of the issue, of course, is that nothing has a place, you know. So at home you can just go to a cupboard, you can pull out a plate or whatever it might be. At the moment, of course, I've just got things in boxes in the back, and so of course it's a matter of grabbing that box for that plate and that box for those sardines and that box for those cracker biscuits, you know. So ultimately I think the ideal setup would be where everything did have a place, you know, where the table just slotted into a, I don't know, let's say a receptacle of some sort. The little stool which I've got sitting here or somewhere or other, I don't even know where it is now. The little stool, where the hell is it? Somewhere. Where did it go? Lost. It's right behind me. Just slotted into a spot, you know, and then ditto with foodstuffs, you know. I think you need little drawers that you can just pull out. But of course, what is accessible from this end, you know, so rather than have to clamber in and get back out again, which is not so easy for an old fella. You saw me do the elephant dance inside there. So the idea is probably pull out drawers so that everything is kind of there. You can just pull out the drawer, pull out the stuff that you need, push the drawer back in again. And I think that ultimately, you know, when we set it up, that's really what we're going to have to do. I think even if, because I said that the width of the mattress is such, so it's about, let's say 80, that there's only about 40 centimeters left, because I think it's, I'm pretty sure it's 1.2 wall to wall. So there's only 40 centimeters left, some of which is taken up by the wheel tub. Now on one side that's okay, you can build over it. So on the second one, of course, I think you have to build over it too. And while it's going to separate the front from the back, you have to think about maybe things at the back being accessible only from inside and only from a drawer. or a cupboard door. But the stuff on this side, let's say, you know, that side there, all comes out in a drawer. And it's only really, I don't know, 20 centimeters or so. It gives you some foot room, but you'd have to really think about it quite carefully, I think, to make sure that you don't then make a bunch of, let's say, drawers and or cupboards that you couldn't open because there was another drawer or cupboard on the other side just getting in the way. So it's kind of interesting to do these, and then these thoughts run through your head. I think that was part of what was happening last night. Broken sleep too, because I was thinking about how could things be improved. Anyway, let's get stuck in and enjoy some tea and some sardines. Bloody tasty sardines. They were those King Oscars. Now, the decision has been made that it's probably best just to stay here where I am. It's already 2. I don't want to be turning up somewhere you know, too much later than this because of the time it takes to actually get set up. And last night, as you recall, even though I had arrived at, I don't know, 3:30 or 4 o'clock, there still wasn't really enough time to find myself a spot and then to cook dinner. So I ended up with a cold can, as you recall, of Thick and Chunky or whatever it was called. And so I figured that if I just stay here rather than push on, because Roma is about an hour away, and then in June is about, I don't know, an hour and a half past that. So it'd be 2.5 hours if I pushed on to in June, which means I'd be getting there at 4:30, and then that's way too late. And even Roma, given that, I just don't know what kind of facilities there are or camp there is. I had a quick look on Wikicamps, and if you've never heard of Wikicamps, give it a shot if you are a camper, because it's fantastic. But it doesn't really show anything other than, I think, maybe a couple of paid camps, you know, rather than free camps, like this one that I'm in. And this is an absolute beauty. This is called Judd's Lagoon. And as I said, it's in a place called Yabluna or something. Let me find out what the hell it's called. Where am I? Does this even? Oh, here we go. I'm at Uliba. So near Uliba. And from here, if I try to get to, say, Roma, these things are amazing too, by the way, aren't they? These bloody smartphones, you know. We old timers grew up with maps, but these just instantly tell me it's about an hour away. And then if I were to choose in June, which is getting closer to Carnarvon, yeah, that's about 2 hours. So I just don't want to do it and then find that I can't find anywhere to actually stay. But if I set off in the morning early enough, then the national park is 4.5 hours, so 5 hours away. So if I set off at, let's say, you know, 7 or 8 o'clock, or let's say 8 o'clock anyway, I'll still get there, you know, early afternoon, and that'll give me time to have a bit of a look around and set up a camp. And then I've got to think about days, because I really do need to be back by Tuesday at the very latest. So today is Saturday. So if I go to Carnarvon tomorrow, Sunday, then I can explore and head back over Monday, stopping somewhere halfway home, because it's about, oh, let's find out. How good is this? It's about, well, it's not about, it's 9 hours home again. So rather than do a 9-hour day, I'll do 2 4.5-hour days. So that works out pretty well, actually. So let's think about this. So tomorrow we'll hit Carnarvon, and then on Monday we'll set off for home, which means that I'll find some spot halfway between. And in fact, it might even be back here again, because that's pretty close. So here, if I go home from here, that's about 5 hours, you know, so that's probably bloody good, really, I think, to stop back here again on the way back, because this is so beautiful. I'll give you a bit of a look around, hey? I've just got a camera set up recording a time lapse or two, and I'll pop across and pick it up in a minute. But what I realised today is that this camera, which I brought, I haven't brought a spare battery for, so I'll probably need to put it on the charger while we're driving tomorrow to make sure that I can still use it, because this is my real classic go-to talking to camera. Well, I'm just making myself a cuppa, which I've got here somewhere or other, and I'm just boiling up some thick and chunky so I have a warm meal. So we'll check out in the morning, hey?